Hey all, today I want to talk a little bit about what could be going on for you if you catch yourself feeling like everybody needs to be attracted to you, or like your body image issues kind of come down to, I need to be desirable to everybody, or I need everybody to want to sleep with me, or anything in that realm, because this is something that comes up a lot and is reflective of a couple of different things that could be going on. We're going to unpack them here today. So I have a client that we were talking about this stuff, and she was sort of explaining to me she's out there dating, she's dating men, she wants to find a great partner, and she has this terror that a man is not going to be attracted to her. And I said, well, if he's not attracted to you, that not everybody's going to be attracted to you, right? Can't you just let him go and say, oh, okay, well, that one wasn't for me? And she said, no, absolutely not. It freaks me out to think somebody might not be attracted to me. I have to be attractive, or I don't know, something terrible is going to happen. And she described this feeling of like really immense danger that a man might not be attracted to her, might not want to date her because of how she looked. And so as we kind of talked about this, I was like, there's something really reasonable about wanting to be found attractive by your partner. We all want our partners to be attracted to us, of course. But if all you need is a couple of great partners or one great partner, then why does it matter? Why do you have to appeal to everybody? Why does it have to apply to everybody? Why does it feel so scary and dangerous for someone to not be attracted to you? And she couldn't answer. So most of my clients will tell me it's just about finding what they want. It's just about getting access to sex and intimacy and love and partnership and marriage and babies. Like, they will tell me that wanting to be attractive to everybody is just about wanting to get their emotional needs met. But if we really break it down, that doesn't hold up, because in order to do that, you only really need to be attractive to a couple of people. So that logic is totally legit, of course. Like, yeah, that's what we want. But there's something else going on. And that something else is what we're going to be looking at right now. One thing this comes down to a lot, unfortunately, is self-objectification. And over a lifetime of learning to objectify yourself, you have learned to see yourself through the lens of other people. And often, unfortunately for us women, a lot of times we see ourselves through the lens of men. Not any particular man, not real men that we know, but a sort of general vague sense of men and how men see us, which is the male gaze. We learn to see ourselves through the male gaze and not actually experience ourselves from the inside. As a first-person perspective, we learn to see ourselves and think about ourselves from a third-party perspective, and we give that third-party perspective to men, a general man, of what they think of us. This is for any number of reasons. Growing up in a patriarchy, it is absolutely what we are conditioned to see and think and feel through a million tiny messages like what we see in media and movies and TV and everything. The sexualization of women, the inequity of, how men and women are represented in different places. There's so many reasons for this. But ultimately what happens a lot of times is that women, especially women who are conventionally attractive and young, they learn that their value to the world comes through being attractive, and that is who they are, and that is their freaking job on earth, is to be desirable to men, to turn men on and make men want them. And that if they don't do that, they have failed at their fundamental purpose as a woman on earth. And this is something that my clients will tell me. They'll say, I don't really believe this, but what I feel is. And then they'll describe something along the lines of, if men don't want me, I have failed at my job of just being a woman here. And there is this deep existential pain of having failed at what they feel like they were put on earth to do. And even if they don't consciously, logically believe these thoughts, and please understand, if you're not in this world, you can't hold these kinds of thoughts to logic, because it's deep. It's usually below the level of consciousness, but it's stuff that's in there, and it's really, really painful. So if this is something coming up for you, you might notice, yeah, that is how I see myself. Fundamentally, I believe that if men are not turned on when they see me, that I have failed, then you can consider that self-objectification, and that one of the reasons you are struggling to get over your body image issues is because you feel like fundamentally your job on earth is to be seen as desirable, seen as attractive, seen as pleasing, and seen as arousing to men. Another thing that could be going on, and sometimes this pairs with the last point, is that a person's emotional needs are almost exclusively getting met through intimate attention from men or sexual attention from men. So a great example of this would be someone who maybe struggled to connect with other girls or women, and then maybe always had a boyfriend, or always found like that in order to get their sort of tank filled for attention and connection and belonging and acceptance and approval, all these things that we are wired to crave, someone who is conventionally attractive and sort of growing up, teenagehood, 20s, that might have been where they got all of those tanks filled. That might have been where they got all of those needs met, was attention from men who found them desirable. And what this does is this teaches us that unless you're desirable, you are not going to get any of your needs met. You will be completely helpless and unable to get your needs for connection, attention, belonging, acceptance, approval, etc. met. And so for those women specifically, there is this really intense need to be desired by men, this intense feeling of danger if they stop being desirable to men, because they are terrified that this is the only way they can access the ability to get those needs met. I call this sometimes that getting all of your dietary, or how do I write it, a staple of your emotional nutrition comes from intimacy with men. So if let's say you're polyamorous, and of course this isn't just about men, this can be about any partners. If the staple of your emotional nutrition comes from sexuality and romantic partnerships, and you don't have really fulfilling and relationships in your community, in your friendships, in your family, those relationships are not really fulfilling and giving you what you need, you only get those needs met in sexual and romantic spaces, it makes perfect sense that the thought of people not wanting to sleep with you would freak you out. So the danger a lot of times is specifically for people who have gotten those needs met most in their lives through sexual and romantic attention, and they are terrified that if that stops, if they stop becoming desirable, if they stop becoming attractive to everyone, that they will lose access completely to getting those needs met. And this can also apply to people who have not gotten those needs met. If you've spent a lifetime unable to access connection, attention, belonging, whatever those emotional tanks are just empty because you haven't been able to access desire from men or romantic and sexual partners, then that can also land in you as, I'm not good enough, or I have to change the way I look in order to get this, or the only way that I can get these needs met is to change how I look, to lose weight, to get surgery, whatever it is. So this can be if you've had a lifetime of those needs being met this way. It can also be if you've had a lifetime of those needs going unmet and looking around at our society and going, I know how I could get them met, and it's the only thing I have to do is look hot enough, and suddenly people will fill my tanks for me. So that is a belief that underpins a lot of this need to be attractive, desirable, or sexy to everyone. So if you resonate with this idea at all, I highly recommend trying to pull apart what's going on for you into its separate pieces, sort of untangling the thread that this can be, the knotted ball of yarn that this can be, into separate threads. So on the one hand, you have the completely normal, healthy, necessary desire to find a great partner, have access to intimacy and sex, be able to get your emotional needs for connection and warmth and kindness and belonging met. All those things, completely normal, completely healthy. We don't have to change anything with that. That is one of these threads. So sometimes it just comes down to acknowledging this is what you want. You want to find a great person, and sometimes it's hard that you can't find them. Or maybe you want your partner to be really attracted to you, and they're not, and you're going through a particularly hard stage in your relationship, and you're wishing you looked hot enough to keep them interested, when actually that's a relationship issue that is deeper and more complex. But that's just normal human stuff in this category. Another thread might be that there's something wounded here, that there's a feeling of scarcity, for example, around getting your needs met, that you have come to learn or believe that if people don't want to sleep with you, if you're not hot enough, that you will not be able to get your needs for connection, belonging, acceptance, attention, respect. You won't be able to get those needs met. And so that just shows you, that's a direction to kind of look at and go, okay, what needs do I need to get met? And then maybe try to figure out how to get those needs met more directly. Especially if this comes down to just wanting, craving partnership, sex, intimacy, and love, because that is accessible to anybody who looks any different way. but it won't be because everybody found you attractive. It'll be because the right person found you attractive or the right people found you attractive. So if it's around scarcity, then sort of proving to yourself and getting what you need, getting what you want by just moving towards it directly instead of trying to like earn it by looking hot enough, going out and dating, putting yourself out there in all these different ways. That is how you get that to kind of be untangled. Because otherwise, you'll just be trying to look hot enough that happens to you in a very passive way, which generally is a super disempowering plan and doesn't work very well. And it'll reinforce the belief that it's all about how you look, that is the problem, and that'll keep you focused on and obsessing over body image issues. Another wounded thing might be a need for safety, and this is a huge thing. I know in my personal story, this played a big factor for me, that I felt like looking attractive enough gave me a certain edge or power over men, and I was scared of men because I have a history of sexual trauma and harassment. So it makes sense that I would need to feel some kind of control or safety or power in a space that felt really scary and disempowering. So for me, looking hot enough, which I should mention is impossible, this isn't real, but in my early 20s it felt very real, that if I looked hot enough, I was safe because I was giving men what they wanted. So they wouldn't get mad at me and they wouldn't, want to hurt me. And this is nonsense. Of course, this is not actually what happens. Nobody's following these rules, but in my head, I had these rules, and it was like, nobody would ever want to hurt me if I was flawless. Men won't try to hurt me if I'm perfect. If they desire me so much that they're willing to do anything to keep me happy, then they won't hurt me. So it gave me a feeling of power, which gave me a feeling of safety, and that was my wounded thing. That was the thread that I had to pull out and deal with directly, because that needed to be healed for me to get to a place where I could just look like a regular human person. Because for a long time, if I had looked like a regular human person, I felt like I was in danger. I felt like I was being put in a position of danger with men because they didn't find me attractive. And so this is one of the things that kind of comes up with clients as well. What is going on? What does being hot enough actually get you? And some of it is like, it gets you what you want, gets your needs met, gets you the partnership that you want, it gets you the sex you want, whatever. And part of it is something wounded. It gets you some kind of safety, some kind of protection, some kind of feeling like you can have access when there's an intense feeling of scarcity. And so that's the thing you kind of have to pull apart the threads on. Another self-protective thing that could be going on with this is giving you a feeling of social and emotional safety. So if you have been taught that looking a certain way gets you validation and desire from men, and that getting validation and desire from men makes you high status in the world of all people, then that's what you're going to want. That's your ticket to social safety, the feeling of kind of belonging and having status in your community. So sometimes it's about that. Sometimes it's about proving your worth or proving that you are good. So if you're desired by men, you're good. If you're desired by men, you're worthy. So these are things of social and emotional safety can look and feel a lot of different ways, but if you're feeling like you need to be desirable to everybody or to all men, that is very likely one of the threads that you might have to pull apart there. As well as just the fact that when you've been taught that you are a sexual object to be consumed and to please others, there's really no way around the fact that you have to look perfect. It's your job. You're failing at your job, as we talked about. So there is also that thread of like feeling that you've failed if you don't look perfect, and you've succeeded if you're desirable enough, means you look good enough. That there's also just that self-protective mechanism around all of your body image issues trying to earn you belonging and status and social and emotional safety. And lastly, another self-protective thing that could be going on is just that feeling of this tank is so hard to fill that if everybody doesn't want me, I'll never find one or two people who do. So there is that feeling of scarcity that if you don't come off as desirable to everyone, you'll never get your needs for intimacy, sex, closeness, love, partnership, whatever, met. And so in those cases, it's also really important to kind of reframe for yourself that it's such a small percentage of people who actually have to want you, who have to desire you in order to get those needs met. And it's actually not the same thing to be attractive in terms of conventional beauty norms and ideals as it is to be desired by your partner. Because most men will report, when I talk to men, I hear this all the time, that they are not actually attracted to conventional beauty ideals. That's not actually how it works for them in their bodies. They don't just get turned on with regard to conventional beauty ideals and then not get turned on when that's not present. That's not how it works for them. So your partner will not probably be attracted to conventional beauty ideals and not be attracted to you. That person just isn't a good partner for you. So you can reframe that for yourself as, I just want to be desired and I want to get my needs met. And that's easy. You can do that without hitting any markers for conventional beauty ideals. So just really separate that for yourself and reframe that what you're looking for is desire by the partners that will meet your needs, and that's great, and not hitting conventional beauty markers so that people find you attractive, because that's not actually how turning real human people on works in the real world. So once you have kind of figured out like what your different threads are and what might be going on for you in terms of what's the self-protective thing happening, what's the wounded thing happening, and kind of sort through what that might be for you when it comes to needing everybody to find you attractive or else you feel like you're in danger or something bad might happen, the next step is to just go get your emotional needs met more directly. Because again, waiting, trying to make yourself attractive enough that good things happen to you and your emotional tanks get filled is a super passive and bad plan. It doesn't work. It makes you feel really disempowered. It's way, way better to just figure out what you want and go and get it directly in the body you have today, looking how you look today. That might mean going out there and putting yourself out there for dating. It might mean trying to find or learning how to communicate about the kind of sex that you want to have. It's about figuring out what you want and then going forth and putting yourself in the driver's seat to go get it, instead of just passively waiting until you look good enough that someone gives it to you, because that doesn't really work. And it just feels awful, and it's going to keep you completely mired in your body image issues. Also, learning to feel safe in other ways. So for me, for example, I had to figure out how to feel safe with men without looking the right way, because I deserve, as we all do, to feel like I can look like a human person and not a perfect sex object or whatever. So however you've been sort of dealing with, or whatever is circulating for you in this realm, you have to figure it out, pull it apart into its separate pieces, get your needs met more directly, heal what needs to be healed, and then and only then will it be possible for you to kind of let go of some of that really intense need to be considered desirable or attractive by everybody. That's it. Thanks for watching, and let me know your thoughts in the comments.